Along with the Lord's Prayer, the 23rd Psalm is probably the most recognized passage in the Bible. Now, when I discovered I was going to be preaching on Mother's Day, I went to the lectionary and I found the 23rd Psalm was a scripture for today. And I thought initially, what in the world does the 23rd Psalm have to do with mothers? But the more I looked at it, the more I studied it, it has everything to do with mothers. And it also relates to who we are as a church. This psalm was probably not written by David. It was probably post-exile. At that time, the focus was not on God and the people of Israel, but it was God and individuals. Because in the 23rd Psalm, we're dealing with God and an individual, not with the people of Israel. And as we look at each verse, we see mothers written all over it. There's a plaque, and I've seen in several of these crafty type stores like Hobby Lobby, and it says, God couldn't be everywhere, so he created mothers. Not very good theology because God is everywhere, but the connection to mothers and the importance of mothers couldn't be more right on target. Mothers come in all shapes and sizes and types. Some are warm and gushy. Some are more stoic and direct. Not all mothers are perfect, but what they have in common is a love for their children. My mother wasn't perfect by any means, and I've shared with you in the past that my mother was an alcoholic, and she would get very mean when she got drunk. But I loved my mother, and I never doubted, not for a single second, that my mother loved me. She once told me that if I wanted to go to college, she would get on her hands and knees and scrub floors to get me through. Fortunately, she didn't have to. But that was a kind of devotion and commitment that I felt from my mother. Now let's look at the 23rd Psalm, and let's look at how it relates to mothers. The image of the shepherd appears throughout the Bible. It's an image of loyalty. The shepherd not only watches over his flock, the shepherd knows every sheep by name. This verse talks about an individual relationship. This verse talks about an individual relationship, and the shepherd leads and ensures that the needs of the flock are met. The needs such as food and water. This is what mothers do every day. They meet the needs of their children. This is an image of calm and comfort. And the challenges that children face, it's the mothers who most often restores calm. They restore calm to the most chaotic times in their child's life. When a child is facing trials, it's the mother who can take them to those calm green pastures. It's the mother who takes them by the quiet waters to rest. Mothers keep us on the straight and narrow. When we deviate off from that right path, it's the mothers who bring us back. Mothers are our compasses. As a child in elementary school, and I know you're going to find this one hard to believe, but as a child in elementary school, my mother and the school principal, Dorothy Sutter, were on a first-name basis. The usual phone conversation went like this. "Hi, Helen, it's Dorothy." My mother would respond, "Oh no, what has he done this time?" I dreaded those phone calls because I knew that when I got home, my mother would put me back on the path to righteousness very, very quickly. And I'm not going to go into details about that one. Everyone faces trials. Life is constantly throwing us challenges that seem insurmountable. And for a child, that trauma, those challenges, are very real and painful. A mother will provide the support to a child so they can fear no evil. A child knows mom will provide the comfort for them when they need it to weather anything, because mom will be there for them. The table shows we are under the care and protection of the host. The last 2 weeks, the adult Bible study class has been studying the critical role of the host in the Old Testament. When we're under the care of the host, no evil can come to us because the host is required to protect those who are staying with them. Having your head anointed with oil reflects how special you are. Having your cup running over means you have more than you would ever need. Mothers do this. A child knows that when they are with and under the care of their mother, they are special. Goodness and mercy shall follow us. What child who is loved by their mother doesn't feel goodness and mercy? I know as a child, I gave my mother many, many opportunities to show me mercy. I especially like the closing word of this verse, forever. My mother died in 1988, 37 years ago. But I still carry her acts of love with me to this day. Even though I never talk about this with my family, even at my age, I still feel a connection to both my father and my mother. As I reflected on the relationship between the 23rd Psalm and motherhood, I realized that the 23rd Psalm goes much further and much deeper. The Psalm doesn't just describe mothers, it describes us. It describes the people of this church. It describes what this church is and what should always strive to be. In our adult Sunday school class, we're studying a book by Josh Scott, who's pastor of the Grace Point Church in Nashville. It's one of those books where you just find yourself marking up all the stuff in it because it's so profound and you just don't want to miss anything. In this book, Scott writes that he has seen God in his congregation through love, compassion, empathy, and kindness, and other human beings. Now, in every sermon and every talk, there's always a key point. I'm going to give you the key point right now and hope you're awake and hope you can remember this. But this is the key point I really want you to take away with you. Because Scott says, every time I have met God in any tangible way, God was always wearing human skin. Let me repeat it. Every time I have met God in any tangible way, God was always wearing human skin. I believe we see it through living out the 23rd Psalm. And we see it right here. Let me give some very, very personal examples of how we see the 23rd Psalm. Actually, it's how I personally see the 23rd Psalm lived out in this church. I think most of you know that I have an incurable stage 4 colorectal cancer. Now, I've undergone some gruesome chemotherapy treatments over the past 24 weeks, and my cancer is not cured. It's just on hold. It will come back in 4 months or 4 years. Who knows? It's been really difficult. But as I prepared for today's sermon, I realized that through this experience, I have been living the 23rd Psalm. I realize that many of us here today are living in the 23rd Psalm. I think I can say this church is the 23rd Psalm. When Elizabeth Bell, who has been in a long-term fight with cancer herself, comes up to me almost every Sunday and asks, how am I doing? I feel like she's a shepherd checking in and letting me know that she is there. The same with Mary Alice and Jim Robeson. When they talk to me and we share cancer experiences, I find that I have 2 more shepherds who are making sure that I will not want. When Tom and Marilyn Maddock come up to me after worship and ask, how are you doing? I experience caring. I feel like Tom and Marilyn really see me and empathize with what I'm living with. They don't know it, but they give me a sense of calm. It helps me to feel those still waters and the quiet of those calm green grasses. When Bill Wilson and I went to lunch, 2 old men commiserating about life, our shared experience gave me strength. Even though I'm in that dark valley, I have people who help me know that I'm not alone. When Philip Lockwood tells me that he's praying for me every day, I know that I'm not alone. When Deborah Newhart approaches me after worship and asks me how I'm doing and that people are praying for me, I know I'm not alone. When I talk to Dwayne Smith and he shares his journey with cancer and his family, and he says he's praying for me, I feel comforted. When I get emails from Brenda Gullett and Trish Beeland from our old Sunday school class in Fayetteville, Arkansas, they want to know how I'm doing so they can update our old class because they are praying for me. Yes. Thy rod and thy staff, they really do bring comfort. All this tells me I'm not alone. When I was first diagnosed with cancer, my oncologist told me the most important ingredient to beating this is what kind of a support network do you have? Well, my cup runneth over because I have the support of my family, of Linda, Cindy, and Katie. And I have the goodness and mercy of this church. Now, I know this is not an Academy Award speech where they get up here and thank everybody, and say, there's just too many people to mention. But in this case, there are too many people to mention. But what I wanted to do was give you some examples. I wanted to give examples of when we can see God in human skin. But please understand, this is not my story. I'm just sharing an example of what happens here all the time. It's an example of how the 23rd Psalm comes to life right here at Green Valley United Methodist Church. Now, over the years, I've had a lot of people say to me that they don't need to go to church because they can sense God walking in the trees and along the streams and the forests. I hear what they're saying. But Jesus and his disciples built churches so that we can see and experience God through each other. Over the years, I've analyzed a lot of sermons from a lot of different ministers. And in almost every single sermon, they explain how we must go out and serve others. I've done that tons of times. And how we have to give to others, because that's the big role for disciples of Jesus Christ. But you know what? Sometimes you're hurting, really hurting, and you need support. You need serving. In the 23rd Psalm Church, we give, but we can also receive. We can experience God's true nature and love through each other. So when we face those times when we're walking through that dark valley, we'll fear no evil because we are the 23rd Psalm. When you need it, and I can vouch for this, the members of this church will be right there for you. That's who we are. That's who we strive to be. Remember, every time I have met God in any tangible way, God is always wearing human skin. Mothers, our church, you, me, and the 23rd Psalm. Amen.